Hi everyone, welcome to the Piano Keys. I'm so glad that you're here. The question I get asked most often from my viewers is, how do I use the pedal? So in this video, we'll talk a little bit about the pedals on the piano, about pedaling technique, and then we'll do a couple of exercises to practice the pedaling technique. First, let's talk about the pedals on the modern piano. Most modern pianos have 3 pedals. The one on the right is called the sustain pedal, and that's usually the one that people are referring to when they talk about pedaling. When the sustain pedal is pushed down and you play the keys on the piano, those sounds are going to last a lot longer than they would without pushing the sustain pedal down. So that's what the sustain part of sustain pedal is referring to. You're sustaining the sound. The sustain pedal is also called the damper pedal. They're the same thing, but we'll call it sustain pedal because that's usually what people call it. So let's take a look at how the sustain pedal lengthens the sounds of the notes. I'll play the notes without pushing down the sustain pedal. You can hear that as soon as I lift my hand from the keys, the notes stop ringing. Now I'll play the same notes, but first I'll push down the sustain pedal and hold it down the entire time. Even though I lifted my hand from the keys, the strings of the piano continued to reverberate and the notes continued to sound, so the notes were sustained. But you can also hear how they all just kind of blended together. Now that might be the kind of sound that you're going for, like a blended together, blurry, dreamy sound. But in general, we don't want the notes blended together like that, and that's where pedaling technique comes in. We'll talk about that in a little bit. So the pedal on the right, the sustain or damper pedal, holds the sounds of the keys longer than they would have sounded without the pedal. What are the other 2 pedals for? Well, the pedal on the left is called the una corda, and to put it as simply as possible, when you press down the una corda pedal, the keys sound a lot softer than they would have without it. There's technical explanations that go along with that, but we're not going to address those in this video. If you're really interested in how the mechanics of a piano work, there are plenty of really great videos available on YouTube. Go ahead and do a search for those. Now the middle pedal is kind of a wild card. On most pianos, it is called the sostenuto pedal, and it's rarely used. Basically what the sostenuto pedal does is whatever keys are pressed down when you put down that pedal, those are the ones that are going to ring, and the other keys that you play afterwards will just sound short. But like I said, it's almost never used, especially not by beginner, even intermediate level pianists, so you really don't have to worry about it. So remember I said it's kind of a wild card, that middle pedal? Well, on certain pianos, it's not even a sostenuto pedal. That's how rarely sostenuto is used. For example, on my piano, which is kind of a hybrid, it's an acoustic piano and an electric piano. So it's got a computer inside. So when I press down my middle pedal, what happens is the piano goes silent. I plug in headphones and I can practice without bothering anybody. But as I say, mine is a special piano. On other pianos, the middle pedal is called a practice pedal or something like that. And when you press it down, it makes the sound of the piano very, very quiet. So again, you can play it without disturbing other people around you. On an electric piano or an electric keyboard, you'll generally only find 1 pedal, and that will be the sustain pedal. So let's talk about that sustain pedal some more. So when you push down the pedal, the sound of the key sustains, and when you lift up the pedal, the sound stops. That's basically the mechanics of the sustain pedal. We have what we call changing the pedal or clearing the pedal. That doesn't actually mean you change around from one pedal to another. Changing the pedal means lifting the sustain pedal, like lifting your foot and then putting it back down again. So what you're doing is you're clearing the sound. Okay, so that's changing the pedal. The next question would be, How do you know when to change the pedal? There's no one-size-fits-all answer to that question because there are so many variables. It depends on what kind of sound you're going for. Do you want a blurry, dreamy sound, or do you want a nice, clean, crisp sound? What piano are you playing? Every single acoustic piano has its own personality. So the pedaling and the sound of the piano and the feel of the keys is going to be pretty different on every piano that you play. Some will be very, very different from one another, and some will be kind of different from one another, but no two pianos feel or sound the same. Another variable is how big is the room that you're playing in. If it's a giant cathedral-like hall, the sound is already going to be pretty echoey in there, so you're probably not going to use as much pedal as you would in a small room with a lot of soft surfaces that will absorb the sound. Another thing to consider is how many people will be in the room. If there are a lot of people, then again, those bodies are absorbing sound, and the room isn't what's called live, which means like echoey. And if there are a few people, then again, you might not have to use as much pedal. So the first rule of pedaling is, not that you don't ever talk about pedaling, sorry, Fight Club reference, but the first rule of pedaling is you have to know what kind of sound you're going for. The second rule of pedaling is you must constantly be listening to the sound that you're making and adjusting as you go along so that it is a sound that you're going for, if that makes sense. So you can't just say, well, this is how I practiced it and this is how I'm going to play it everywhere. It won't work that way. You constantly have to be listening and monitoring and adjusting your pedal. In general, you'll want to change your pedal when you play a new chord. So let's say, for those of you who know about chords, you play a C chord and then you play a D chord. Those you don't want generally, and again, this is most of the time, you might want a weird echoey sound, so I'm not talking about that. But generally, you don't want to mix those two chords together because then it just becomes a big mess. So you'll want to change whenever your chord changes. Or if you're playing a piece that has a lot of runs like scales, you don't want to blur all that together if you're going for a clean sound, so you'll have to change your pedal more frequently. Just like in every other aspect of playing the piano, there's a basic way of doing something and then there's a more advanced way of doing something. So you need to be able to do the basics really well first before you ever approach the advanced. In this video, we're going to do an exercise that will help you to learn the basic use of the sustain pedal. First, let's play a series of 5 notes with the right hand. They're the same 5 notes that I just played earlier in this video. So I'll use first finger on middle C, and I'll pick up my hand after playing each note to make it really obvious to my muscles what it is that I want them to do. Watch me first and then pause the video and practice on your own. After you're comfortable with each step of the exercise, come back and continue the video. Okay, here we go. Pretty simple, right? Pause the video here and practice that. Even though it's very easy and you can do it on your first time, pause and do it on your own because we're going to keep adding on to this. Now I'll play the same thing again, and this time I'll add the pedal. So just a quick note about how to push down the pedal. Keep your heel on the floor and put your toes on the pedal. You don't want to cover the pedal all the way because then it's very hard to control. You don't want to do like a sideways thing. I've seen all kinds of stuff, but this is the right way. So basically the pad of your foot on the pedal, if you feel better pulling it back a little bit, that's fine. But if you go back too far, you might slide off, and again, you have very little control. So you'll have to find your own sweet spot there. So push down the pedal and then lift it up. Notice that my heel didn't lift. So it's not like pumping air into your bicycle tires. It's more like tapping your foot, okay? But you're tapping it down and up like this. When you lift up, don't let the pedal pop up. So you're not letting go of the pedal all the way. You're keeping in contact with it. You're down, you're up, you're down, you're up, but you're always touching it. Control it the whole time. So now let's practice changing the pedal. Push it down. Then when you want to change it, you do a quick up, down. Up, down. Up, down. So we don't give an equal amount of time to the up and the down. The up is really quick, almost like we can't wait to go down again. Up, down. Up, down. That's called changing the pedal or clearing the pedal. Pause the video here and practice that until it feels comfortable. Play the C and push down the pedal. Now keep the pedal down, lift up your hand, play the D and hold it down, then change the pedal up, down. So we're changing the pedal just after we play the note, not at the same time and not a long time later. It's almost like the foot is trying to catch up to the hand, but it's always late. Now hold on to the pedal, lift your hand, and play E. Then up, down with the foot. Keep the pedal down, lift your hand, and play F. Then change the pedal right after. Keep the pedal down, play G, then change the pedal. I'll play the notes going down now and use the pedal, and I won't say what I'm doing so that you can just focus on watching and listening to the notes. Pause the video here and practice this. When you can do it easily with your right hand, practice it with your left hand. Now we'll practice both hands at the same time. So I'm going to play the same thing we did with one hand at a time, but it'll be two hands together. So put down the pedal and the fingers at the same time. Hold the pedal, lift the hands, play the new notes, change the pedal. Lift, play, change. 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 So I'm saying it with that rhythm, play, change, because that's how you want to feel like. You want to play first, change. So it's not play and change at the same time. It's play and then change. Practice that. Now I'll do an exercise that's a little more advanced. It'll be the same exact notes and pedaling. The only difference is that we won't be lifting your hand in between each note. So you'll be connecting the notes to one another. I'll show you with my left hand. Play and push down the pedal. Now, don't pick up your hand. Play the next note. Change the pedal. Play the next note. Up, down. Play the next note, up, down. So play first and then change the pedal. Play, up, down. 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 Pause here and practice that, and then also practice it with the right hand. Now let's do that exercise with both hands. So both hands will play C, push down the pedal. Now, move to the next note, keep the pedal down, change. Play, up, down. 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 Play, play, up, down. Practice that. So the exercises that we just did are teaching you how to coordinate your hands and your foot on the sustain pedal. Of course, when you're playing your songs, you'll have to figure out where you want to change your pedal. So that will be different for every song that you play. You'll need to practice and experiment. Remember, this stuff takes practice and time. Sometimes you might feel like you're failing more than you're succeeding. Welcome to the club. That's the nature of learning an instrument. When you're learning a song or piece, make sure you learn the notes first. No pedal added, okay? So learn right hand or left hand, put them together, make sure you've got that down, and then add the pedal. You don't want to give yourself too much information. It's overwhelming, and you might actually be slowing down the learning process. So take what you've learned, practice these exercises, apply them to the songs or the pieces that you're working on. Remember to check out my Piano Bootcamp course. You can watch a few lessons for free, and if you decide that you want to go ahead and do the course, you can do the lessons at your own pace, in your own home. Basically, you buy the course, you own it for life, and then you take it however fast or slow that you want to. The link to Piano Bootcamp is in the description box of this video, and I also have a coupon code that will save you about 60% off the list price. That is also in the description box of this video. If you like my videos, please click the thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. Find me on social media. On Facebook, I'm at The Piano Keys. On Instagram, The Piano Keys TPK. And visit my website, thepianokeys.com, for other sorts of things like sheet music, articles, my thoughts, whatever. Keep practicing, be patient. Let me know if you have any questions, and have fun. I'll see you soon. Bye.